America in the face of every Tom, Dick, Harry, Selma, Tanya, and Estella. Let's shed some light on the future of your American dream and try to do more for your countrymen than watch news and exclaim smart remarks when the gibberish from your 42-inch electron-lit tube makes you smirk. Remember, boo-boo, there are doers and there are joiners, and you can no longer afford to be the latter. And by a doer, I don't mean a foreign national who well before the 9/11 attack carefully confirmed that none of his relatives were working near the World Trade Center. What I mean is a law-abiding citizen who senses the credibility gap in our failing political process and wonders what can be done to help. Now, rest assured that to be a doer, you don't need to sign into some creepy club run by a schmuck that met his girlfriend while hanging out near a mental institution and put yourself to sleep so you can upgrade your alien, buy a vehicle, and transition into a supposedly superior life on the dark side, naturally, of a frozen rock flying through space at 50 miles a second. There is a better way to become a doer, and here's how. America is in trouble, and only you, not our next president who immediately upon inauguration will fall victim to anti-partisan political dissonance in D.C. Only you have the power to do something about it. So here's the problem spectrum. Problem 1, education. Selma, does it bother you that your 20-year-old uses pen and paper to do two-digit number addition? I recently saw a billboard near an exemplary school in Houston that spells the word curriculum starting with letters CI. Who will they bring into the world? Average teacher wages are over $40,000 a year, but apparently that's not enough. There are good teachers among philanthropists, but face it, more pay means more competition and better education. But you know, my sensitivity for things like this is heightened. I completed my high school curriculum in Ukraine and spoke no English until I turned 17. But because my initial exposure to the American educational system occurred at a relatively mature age, I was quick to recognize its wickedness. Unlike native-born Americans who were raised here and thus comfortably rejoice in anticipation of a $600 monthly Social Security check. And here we are. If you can only count to 100, you think that 600 dead presidents is like, a million. But it's not, Tanya. Not in the age of a $90,000 heart bypass surgery. Speaking of that, the health system. 1 in 3 people is diagnosed with heart condition or a cancer before the age of 45, and roughly 50 million of us have no health insurance. But of course, every wannabe president, regardless of his place in the allegedly bipartisan political spectrum, feeds us pre-election fairy tales about inexpensive health care. But the company that will bring it to you is not AT&T. Without some radical changes, we will live 20 to 30 years shorter lives than our genes permit us. And if you are impressed by large numbers, that's like 60 to 90 dog years, Tommy. Now, Tanya, if Uncle Sam picks up the tab, the quality of healthcare will suffer. But hey, the entire medical industry doesn't have to go federal. If we found $700 billion to save the financial system, we should solve the healthcare crisis without forcing businesses to buy private health insurance for employees. Look, Richard, we have a choice between public and private schools, right? So we need a choice between public and private doctors. Any citizen, veteran or not, should be able to use nominal medical services at no cost and without waiting for 5 months for a tooth extraction. Afraid that service quality will suffer? It won't if we let doctors choose whether they practice in the public or private sector. Selma, are you with me? Okay, problem 3, taxes. Last time I went to a DPS office, the line was very long, and so I approached the female at the counter and asked, "Ma'am, can I renew my license online?" "Get back in line," she yelled. I objected. "Just tell me, please, yes or no." Her response, "Are you deaf, sir? Get back in line if you want to ask a question at my counter." Estella, there are so many things wrong with this situation that a civilized American like you should become ecstatic from the thought of savings in government spending from requiring all driver license renewals to take place in cyberspace. Are you ecstatic, Estella? Now let's take school taxes. Why do we engage in the socialist approach of collecting from people without offspring? When school taxation evolved a million years ago, everyone had babies because they were affordable. But today, people without them should not pay the school system to raise someone else's kids who won't even know how to spell the word curriculum. Got 4 kids and no money? You should have thought with your big head when you had them. The government should take school taxes directly out of your paycheck. In one form or another, we pay nearly 50% of what we earn in taxes. Uncle Sam, why don't you fire all your obnoxious DPS counter franchisees and reinvest some of the fresh savings into simple things like public health care and education? Okay, problem 4, nutrition. Why are we complacent with the health effects of every seven-syllable word food additive used in colorants, preservatives, and sweeteners that, taken in large doses, cause laboratory mice to fall chronically ill? We are breeding people who mistake the FDA label for a seal of quality. We should collect more taxes from parents that let their kids eat more than one frozen dinner per week, and double their school taxes if they have 3 or more children, for that matter. That will cause teenagers to spend more lunch money on contraceptives and will stimulate the private home market, won't it? Our gastrointestinal problems will shrink so much that even the global warming may go away. Guys, the problems we are facing are monstrous, and they began in the Government 101 class, where the textbook says that the primary objective of a politician is to get reelected. Is that why 40 to 50% of Americans don't vote? The sad thing is, every past president is a pretty good person and is pretty good at not telling the whole truth, basically all the time. Paul Valéry, a sharp French polymath who checked out about 100 years ago, said, "Politics is the art of preventing people from taking part in affairs which properly concern them." Fine, we don't like the French. Let's listen to someone local. A former US president said, "Politics is supposed to be the second oldest profession. I've come to realize that it bears a very close resemblance to the first being acting, I presume, since the quote is from Ronald Reagan." How would Clinton answer the question, "Why did the chicken cross the road?" Well, he'd probably say, "I did not cross the road with that chicken." And if George W. answered it, he'd probably say, "When it crossed, I was sitting in an elementary school class hundreds of miles away, and I had never heard of this Bin Laden before. Is he a bedfellow?" This travesty is universal, Mr. Olympia. Your answer to this question would probably be something like, "Yeah, I told you that chicken is good as long as it is raised with no steroids, but I did not promise you that California would not run out of money." Okay, jokes aside, most critically, problem 5. Our voting system is in trouble. Our candidates have no reason to campaign in states where they are safely ahead or badly behind because states have complete power to allocate their electoral votes. In 2004, for example, over 99% of campaign funds went into only 16 states, the so-called battleground states. This means that votes in the other 35 campaign markets are inconsequential, and that a candidate need not be most popular to win the presidency. A 60,000 vote shift in Kerry's favor, for example, would have resulted into his victory, although Bush was ahead by 3 million votes. Long story short, the system that our forefathers founded with pride and which we amended about 100 times to make us feel better about ourselves needs a global overhaul. So I ask you to do 2 things. Number 1, go and vote. Tom, Dick, Harry, Selma, Tanya, and Estella, please vote. You are not alone. If only 1/3 of all chronic non-voters cast ballots in this election, the outcome will be different. And don't just vote for the face and its color. Vote for a system with integrity. Number 2, email your congressman and demand that they listen to your voice. It's their job to listen. We just covered a good short list of problems that need immediate solutions. Speak up about them, and while at it, demand their support of a mandatory voting system. If you don't know who to vote for, you submit the unsure ballot, but you can't just sit there and not vote at all and then expect to get your food stamps from Uncle Sam at the end of the month and complain that it's not enough. And if you don't vote, then let the IRS collect a few $100s extra from you next year and then give that money to the smaller candidates in the next election. Arnold, wouldn't that be a meaningful affirmative action gesture? America, in the face of every Tom, Dick, Harry, Selma, Tanya, and Estella. Give your country 5 minutes a month. That's all I ask for. That's like 1 hour per year to sit down and write to your local representatives. The effects of this will be colossal. Just go to senate.gov and say something to take your children's future from the hands of lunatics who forget the oldest rule of good government. When you find yourself on the side of the majority, pause and reflect. So do I have your support to vote for somebody, America? Do not allow the American middle class to vanish without a trace. And don't forget to share this feed with others. Voting is not for somebody, it is for everybody. To comment on this feed, kindly send your thoughts to voteforsomebody@yahoo.com. Thank you for your attention. This is Alexander Kelvin, your political voice with overtones of comedy.